I promised it. Here it is. My review of the 1978 classic, John Carpenter's Halloween. Welcome back to the channel. I've been wanting to get this review out for a while now, and I finally had a chance. I sat down last night, rewatched the original Halloween again for about the 200th time, and I have notes. I have about around three pages of notes here on the movie. And I'm not going into like scene by scene. I'm just going to talk about some things along the way that I liked, things I picked out, and we'll go from there because everybody's seen this movie and everybody's went in depth on what the box office was, you know, who did the photography, you know, the fact that the leaves used in every scene were raked up and reused again. So that's been talked about to death, you know. How the movie was scored. What I'm going to do is give you my thoughts on it, and of course it'll be accompanied by some clips. Well, why not? You know, we don't care about copyright here. We just want to make good quality videos for you guys, so on with the show. So the opening sequence sets up the tone for the movie, which is absolutely fantastic. We see the POV shots of young Michael, and it's very eerie, and it just adds to the entire tension of the scene. And the score really helps that too, obviously, with him lurking around the outside of his own home and watching his sister Judith's boyfriend leave after only a couple minutes, which, but so, you know, that whole scene happens, and when they're panning out and the score is building before we go to Loomis and Nurse Marion Chambers in the car on the way to Smith's Grove, you get that scene where mom and dad are sitting there and they're looking at Michael, and then the mother, if you really look at her face, she just kind of has this like expression. I was like, is that really how you would react if your son is standing on the lawn? Your young son, was he 6 or 7? With a bloody kitchen knife. Like, this is how you're going to react? Like, just stand there silently and stoically? Which I imagine that was done just for effect on the shot as they panned out, kind of that, oh, it's just a moment in time, just frozen kind of thing. That's kind of what I picked up from it anyway. So we cut to Loomis and Nurse Marion in the car, and they're talking. This is exposition, obviously, about Michael's background and Loomis's observations of Michael and how he treated him as a patient and things like that. And I like that. You know, they could have shown some of that, but we get into that in part 2 with some flashback sequences to Michael in the hospital, young Michael. So, which obviously comes after the twist that the Strode girl is Meyer's sister, blah, blah, blah. You know, and honestly, my whole thoughts on that twist, which I'll get more into when I do the review of Halloween 2, I still don't retrospectively hate it, but in hindsight, it is very unnecessary. In terms of the long-term story, the long goal, I mean, I guess it was okay. So we get to the sanitarium and we see the patients are outside wandering around in the rain at night. And, you know, you get the scene where Loomis gets out of the car, Nurse Marion's in the car, and Myers, you get that cool little effect music. This jumps up on the car and he's on the roof and she's very scared inside. She doesn't know what's going on. And she's leaned back against the window, and you see that scene where his hand hits the window and he has a wrench attached to the bottom of his hand to hit the window. And I pointed that out to my wife last night because she'd never noticed it before. And I'm like, check this out. And I paused it and we freeze framed it. And she's like, oh, I picked it up from a review I watched a couple years ago. Like, I never noticed it. It's just a neat thing, you know, it's like, haha, gotcha kind of thing. But I still would rather have a effect like that than any CGI. The shape stalks. And this is another cool thing that you pick up on after rewatching the movie, you know, multiple times, and you start looking for things in the background. And Michael stalking Laurie, Annie, and Linda in the beginning of the movie was, it was just cool. And it's weird because you're like, how does he drive a car? How does he learn how to drive a car? But yeah, I just thought it's neat. I always liked it. Again, it's just tension building, and it leans in to the implication that, you know, he's locked on to his target. This predator has locked on, and now the hunt has begun. And little Tommy Doyle is introduced here. Young Tommy, who we know would grow up to be Anthony Michael Hall. I wonder if Anthony Michael Hall, this Tommy Doyle, was the one that was in Johnny Be Good. I can't, you know, I wonder if he would find his performance in that movie problematic now. Anyway, evil dies tonight. We have them, you know, talking about Lonnie, you know, the boogeyman thing, and Lonnie says, this is the night the book, blah, 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 blah. Laurie disses Lonnie, which is funny because they bring that character back in David Gordon Green's Abortion, Halloween 2018. And, you know, Laurie's dropping the key off at the Myers house, and you see Michael is already inside, and he's watching her walk away. And, you know, they say Jason Voorhees has teleportation powers. You know, Michael is like Visa and MasterCard. He's everywhere you want to be. This movie uses foreshadowing, a lot of it. I mean, I'm not reinventing the wheel by saying that, but I really, like I said, in multiple rewatches of this movie, listening to the teacher as Laurie's kind of daydreaming and staring out the window, discussing fate. And that is a very big tool of foreshadowing. She's talking about fate and how it's like unavoidable, inescapable. And then you have Michael standing outside the room as Laurie's looking out the window, staring at her, you know, with the car there that he stole from Loomis and Nurse Marion. And, you know, she looks back, the teacher, Miss Strode, and she answers the question and looks back and he's gone. The unavoidable fate of her and Michael, their fates intersecting in this story. And like I said, just foreshadowing, and I just thought it was neat and worth mentioning. Like I said, not reinventing the wheel here, but these are just things that I enjoy about the movie and that I picked up. Then after school, Tommy Doyle is leaving, and he has the 3 bullies that are, you know, harassing him as he's trying to carry this. And it's like, where did he get this pumpkin? Because he didn't have it in the morning. Did they give away these massive pumpkins to these kids at school? And it's be like, you know, carry this 10 blocks home or 5 blocks home, however far you got to walk. Because you can see it must, and I don't know if this was an actual pumpkin or one of the gourds, because I know they painted gourds for this too, because they were in California and they were out of season. But he's readjusting his hold on this pumpkin multiple times during the dialogue between him and the other kids. So it's just kind of funny. It's like, is this actually like a pumpkin, or is it a gourd? Or is he, you know, is it just like they told him to act like it was heavy? I don't know. But it looks like he's a little bit actually uncomfortable. It's kind of funny. And then, you know, when the kids run away after Tommy gets knocked over, crushes his pumpkin, you have Lonnie, I think it was Lonnie, that ran away, and Michael grabs him. And then there's that whole scene where Michael goes full To Catch a Predator, and he's stalking Tommy Doyle in the station wagon, which isn't creepy or anything. We also had the whole sequence where Dr. Loomis finds the truck alongside of the road with the rabbit and red matchbook on the ground, and then you look down out of Loomis's line of vision is the dead driver of that truck, who's, you know, just laid out there with a stab wound in his chest in the weeds. From there, we go to meeting Annie and Linda as they walk home from school with Laurie. PJ Souls, nothing against her, but the character of Linda, oh my God, is she insufferable. Totally. She says totally, and I had a counter just for this sequence here, and I paid attention through the rest of the movie, which PJ Souls says totally 6 times in this first appearance of her character Linda.
You know, it's totally insane. I'll be totally wiped out.
I totally never show. Totally charted.
Totally.
Totally. Totally silly. Yeah, it's totally dark. She's totally not here. Totally.
But no, we have their personalities are kind of, you know, fleshed out as much as they need to be for the intents and purposes of this movie as the girls walk home. You know, Annie Brackett is very mean to Laurie. Just very, very rude to her. And I get it, Laurie is the good girl and they're doing this to put that over, which is fine. But it's just the character's so mean. Linda's the ditz, that's fine. She's a cheerleader, which is funny because she's a cheerleader. They're talking about the homecoming game, which is football. And in the background, as the girls are walking out of school, you can hear the cheerleaders practicing in the background, but Linda's not at practice. Is that just a logic error? And again, I'm not hating on the movie. I love the movie. I do. It's just these little things like that, just the logical things, you know, it's like, should this make sense or not? Or should I not look too far into this? But yeah, so Linda goes home first, then Laurie and Annie walk home, and we have the scene with the bushes where, you know, there you go, Laurie, you scared another one away. And it's just like, oh my God.
Scared another one away.
She's brutal. She's just brutal to Laurie. Annie, the daughter of Sheriff Lee Brackett. But we'll talk about him more in a little bit here. Dr. Loomis is at the cemetery with the caretaker that has a large amount of information and seems to know a lot about, you know, things that are just exposition. This is just another means of exposition, which is fine. There's always characters like this. Later on, you know, in the movies, not this movie, but it makes me think of the Chris Farley character, the security guard from Wayne's World that had a rather large amount of information for just a security guard. So, yeah, and I made a note here that Annie is so mean to Laurie on so many occasions early in the movie, and And the movie aside, like beforehand, they're establishing that these characters are friends. And I wonder if Annie is always this mean to Laurie. Has Annie always acted like this towards Laurie? Has she always been this passive-aggressive, antagonistic frenemy? Is that like the baseline of their relationship? And then Linda is kind of just like the ditz that happened to, you know, be in their circle as well. Because we don't really get the level of interactions with Linda and either of them as we do between Annie and Laurie, which Annie and Laurie's relationship is more integral to the story, obviously. Linda is just an ancillary character. And Michael was not very stealth in his following of Laurie and Annie when he was just standing out in the middle of the sidewalk in broad daylight. Now, I understand it was Halloween, so people are naturally wearing costumes. But, and my wife pointed this out too. Now, we grew up in the 80s, both of us. You know, I'm 43. My wife is a few years younger than me. And we used to start trick-or-treating later in the evening. These kids are like trick-or-treating when everybody else is barely out of school. It's like, are these the homeschool kids that are trick-or-treating early? Or I don't know. Where would I be without this line in the movie from Sheriff Lee Brackett, Charles Cyphers?
You know, it's Halloween. I guess everyone's entitled to one good scare, huh?
And I would be remiss if I didn't mention how funny it was, the scene where Annie and Laurie pull up to her dad after Michael has robbed the hardware store, broken in, and he has no idea they were just clam baking in the car, which is absolutely hilarious to anybody who's ever smoked weed in a car with the windows rolled up. Loomis and Brackett go into the Myers house after Loomis gets to Haddonfield, and, you know, they find this partially eaten dog in the house, and that just, again, foreshadowing Michael's penchant for not only killing dogs, but eating them as well. He likes the Canis lupus, apparently. That's a big part of Michael's diet. And another scene I really enjoy is Loomis describing Myers to Brackett, you know, the blackest eyes he'd ever seen, and how he just goes into great detail. And again, more exposition from Dr. Loomis, but it's very well woven into the story and presented well.
I met him 15 years ago. I was told there was nothing left. The blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. Because I realized that what was living behind that boy's eyes was purely and simply evil.
And Donald Pleasance, the man, what did he make for this movie? It was like $20,000 was his salary for this movie, and he was the highest paid actor on it. But with such a low budget, you know, that was considerably high pay for. And Donald Pleasance was, you know, a very well-known, a very well-respected actor. So, yeah, having him in this movie, and then you look back at the rest of his body of work and what came before it when he did Halloween, it's just like, yeah, this man is, you know, this was a coup to get an actor the caliber of Donald Pleasance in such a fledgling production from, you know, new filmmakers in Carpenter and Hill and pretty much everybody else involved in the production. Annie is on the phone with Lori, and Tommy sees Michael across the street standing outside the house. We go to that when he's watching Annie and she's doing laundry. She's talking on the phone with Lori while she's making popcorn for Lindsay, which we'll talk about that in a minute. And he just takes a plate, just boom, just throws it down. It's like, hey, was this motherfucker pissed? Michael's like, the hell with your ficus. It wasn't a ficus. Yeah, and then again, Michael proceeds to off another dog in the form of Lindsay Wallace's dog, Lester. Yeah, as a dog owner, it's always sad to see a puppers get it in the movie. As mine is back here in her bed right now, listening to me, going like, choose your next words very carefully, Pops. But yeah, Lester, R.I.P. Lester the dog. No actual dogs were harmed during the filming of this movie, but yeah, it's a very visceral scene. You had that brrrr kick in when you see Lester's body kind of go limp, and Michael's like just holding him, and you see the legs just kind of fall down. I was like, oh, poor puppers. Another scene I wanted to point out was when Tommy is watching TV and The Thing comes on, the original. And that's, again, foreshadowing, you know, a few years later, John Carpenter would remake The Thing. And yeah, it turned out to be one of the best horror sci-fi movies probably ever. A fantastic movie, which I just rewatched, and I'm going to watch it again and do what I did here, and we'll take some notes, and we'll have a full review of that coming up as well. But yeah, I love that little nod to the fact that he would go on to direct The Thing. Okay, so back to Annie in the laundry room and how this built more tension. Knowing what I do about the movie being shot in California, this makes the scene even more funny, because I always thought that laundry room scene was very weird, and the setup of it, the external laundry room. And this is literally what I said in my notes. I grew up in the Midwest, and with our winters, that setup wouldn't last. You'd have frozen pipes, busted water lines, and also I will sell my leaves to anyone who wants them. But no, that was just funny, because you go out through the backyard and there's this outbuilding, and that's the laundry, which, I mean, it's not a bad setup. I don't hate it at all. I thought it was cool. I just thought, I'm like, for this being in the Midwest, this is so impractical. Like, I mean, right now, this morning, I'm shooting this on November 17th. I drove my son to school. It was like 29, 30 degrees, and there was some snow coming down. Okay. Now, yesterday, it was like 62, and it was beautiful out. Okay. And then it was snowing this morning. So, I mean, yeah, we've already had freezing temperatures here in November. So this is, obviously Halloween, but in the Midwest, that shit wouldn't fly. Like, it wouldn't work. I mean, if it's a standalone heated building, yes, but this was not very well heated or insulated, just looking at the construction of it. You know what I mean? So knowing the movie was filmed in California, yes, it obviously makes sense. But as we've said before, you look at some of the aesthetic now with the benefit of hindsight in the movie, and it's like, clearly not the Midwest. And I'm not talking about the obvious things like palm trees that, snuck into a shot or something like that. But no, just that. And it's October, and they have perfectly manicured lawns. Now, there are lawns in my neighborhood that are still, immaculate, because the guys that live there are older retired guys, and they go out and they clean their fucking leaves up every day. I don't have time for that. I pay a company to come in and clean my leaves up like twice, in the fall and once in the spring, and then I do the rest of it. But yeah, if anybody wants to buy those leaves, let me know, and I'll make sure you get them. And then on to Annie's death scene. And, you know, Annie, I don't hate the character. A lot of her line delivery is very annoying with like, Lindsay!
Lindsay! Lindsay, come out here!
Gets it when she goes to get in her car, which is she parked in the Wallace's garage, which is, it seems to be like the open garage design, you know, no door or whatever. She goes in there, parks the car in the garage. Car is locked. Okay. Goes back in to get the keys. Singing, happy. Comes back out. It's unlocked. And she doesn't even notice it. It's like you purposely went in to get the keys because your door was locked. And then you go, and you're trying to leave without your keys in the first place, which I don't think. It's like she didn't have pants on. So where did she think her keys were? Did she think she left them in the car? And then if the car's locked, why would you go back? I don't know. I'm thinking too much into this, okay? So she comes back, and yeah, lo and behold, here is the door's unlocked, gets in, and it's like the inside's fogged up, and she, you know, it takes her a second, but she notices that, and by the time she notices that, here's Michael in the back seat, chokes her out. We get a little bit of, you know, her, you know, gasping, trying to fight him off, and until she eventually dies. He slits her throat after choking her, which I don't know why he didn't go right to that. He wanted to enjoy himself a little bit first, obviously. You know what? It's Jaguar-esque. And as I was at the zoo and I was talking to the guy that isn't part owner of it with my son last time, we were talking about big cats and their hunting, and I wasn't aware that jaguars kill for sport. They don't go right for the neck. They'll like crush a skull, but not like kill their prey first, so it has to suffer. That's honestly like Michael is that apex predator, that big cat, and this is like a very Jaguar-esque kill. He's like enjoying it, if that makes sense. Then we get the one moment of pure joy that we see on Dr. Loomis's face through this entire movie, and we don't really get this from him in anywhere in part 2. In part 4 we do, when Loomis is in the truck with the Reverend Sayer, and he is singing, you know, "Share me, baby," and he's singing, and he takes a drink, and you see a smile wash across Loomis's face for a split second. That's what we get here when the kids are going up to the Myers house, and Lonnie's like getting ready to go in, and you hear, "Psst, Lonnie, get your ass away from there." And he kind of gets that little smile on his face, which is just a fun moment.
Go ahead, Lonnie. Go in!
Hey, Lonnie, get your ass away from there.
And it's like one moment of levity that doesn't destroy all the tension that's built, if that makes sense to anybody, because this is a problem with a lot of modern films, is you will build and do such a good job of building tension, and then you throw in a stupid quip and it destroys everything. This was a momentary a moment of kind of like satisfaction for Loomis, and it goes right back to the tension when he's kind of scared by Sheriff Brackett. So I just wanted to, you know, just talk about that scene for a moment, and how I really liked that Loomis had that, you know, he's like, he kind of got to smile there for just a moment. So Bob and Linda, they get to the Wallace house. Linda says totally 3 more times, bringing our totally total to a total of 9 totallys. And that I did in one take. I didn't have to reshoot that. And literally, I read that verbatim as it was in my notes. But Bob's death, great jump scare. Goes to the kitchen to get a beer. And the score hits when Michael charges out of the closet. And Bob's like, all right, come out. And when he, you know, obviously we know it's very implausible to have, okay, not only the strength to lift somebody up, not a grown, but he's a teenager. I mean, he looks to be about, I would say, estimate about 160 pounds maybe. To lift him up with one hand like that, okay? And then to have the power to take a kitchen knife and jam it through a wooden door and pin. That knife is not going to fall. It's going to hold, 100. Well, we're just using 160 pounds as estimation up in the air like that, and not slice through or anything else. There was no wiggle. The body just hung there, which for effect in the movie, I love it. I don't hate the scene. I'm not hating on the scene. I like it. It's a great kill. And not to mention how Michael sits there, and that's when we get the as he's admiring his handiwork. And yeah, Castle did a great job with the body language. Then we get Linda's death by strangulation. Michael listening to Lori as she, asks for Annie. She thinks it's Annie messing with her on the phone because Annie called her earlier. Didn't say anything. Lori thought it was a prank call. And Annie's like, another instance of Annie being mean to Lori. And now you're hearing him seen chewing. Like, it's comical. Absolutely comical. We'll go ahead to Lori discovering Annie's body staged with the headstone. Makes me question the weight limit of that bed, because that headstone would be at least, 300-400 pounds? And she also finds Bob and Linda's conveniently placed corpses as well. Bob has the swing down, upside down. Linda's folded up in the cabinet. But Annie, splayed on the bed, the headstone behind her, throat slit. It's a great visual when Lori's just happens upon this den of death, as it were, in the boudoir. So it's cool, but like I said, a 300-400 pound headstone on a bed frame that's only meant for so much weight. And then you have a dead body laying on there too, which, Annie's probably about 105 pounds. So you're talking 505 pounds. It might not break, but it just seems like that being set the way it was, it would cause some. Again, I'm digging too deep into the weeds here, I know, but but the logistics of him getting that into the house with nobody hearing, you had to carry that up the stairs, mind you. And Michael Myers is literally me, okay? Not the Rob Zombie, Tyler Mane Michael Myers. It's like an NFL fucking linebacker. Michael Myers is listed at 6'1", 205 pounds. I'm 6'3", 210, 11 pounds, with a medium athletic build right now. As I'm getting back into the gym, I put a couple pounds on, which is absolutely what I want to do. But yeah, so what the point I'm making is Michael Myers is not some hulking individual. Not saying he's not strong. Obviously, he has pretty good physical strength, but it's just implausible is what I'm saying. I don't hate it. I'm not, but it's just something I wanted to talk about. Lori making a lot of bad decisions during the conclusion of this movie, which, as I said, not doing scene by scene here, but her final confrontation with Myers, including the relinquishing of the knife after she stabs him in the neck with the sewing needle. She pulls the knife out of the couch and then sets it down, allowing him to get it again. She stabs him in the eye when she's in the closet, which is a great scene, the closet scene, after the living room scene when she goes upstairs. This is after she gets the kids out of the house. She's in the closet. That is a fantastic scene. This was one of the first things I saw from this movie, was a clip of that scene in another movie or a special that was talking about horror movies. I saw the scene of him breaking through the closet. The light gets flipped on and he looks down and he sees her there. And then she jams that coat hanger in his eye and, stabs him in the chest with his knife. I believe it was the chest or the shoulder after he drops that. So yeah. But then she drops the fucking knife again and then gets Tommy and Lindsay out of the house.
Why?
And this is when we get Loomis alerted to the Myers location by the screaming kids. And this is where, the famous 6 times, Loomis goes up and Michael's coming at Lori, shoots him once, and then empties the revolver. Michael falls over the balcony. And when Loomis goes back to look, he's gone. Michael's gone. The body's gone. And that's the end, the end of the movie there. which leads directly into part 2. We have the fucking beautiful shots with the breathing inside the mask at the end of these just static location shots, and the way they're framed and angled. I love it. This movie is fantastic. Despite the things that I picked out, I love this. I never disliked Halloween. I disliked Rob Zombie's Halloween, and I still continue to dislike that vehemently. I hate the David Gordon Green trilogy. There's a few things in there that I can pick out that I like, but nothing will ever compare to John Carpenter's Halloween and Halloween 2 in my eyes. Even Halloween 4. I love Halloween 4. That is, outside of the original, Halloween 4 is probably my favorite entry in the franchise. I mean, I'm not saying it's better than part 1, not at all, but it's my personal favorite. That's the first one that little Etep saw at 8 years old, was the original, or part 4. So you can see my review of that, which will be linked in the description. I love this movie. I do. I love it. It never gets old. I can watch it any time of year. The same with the second. Any of these movies, honestly. 1 through 4, I can watch anytime. Absolutely. Even H2O, which is, we'll get to that one. We'll get to that one. Now we've done Halloween 1. Halloween 2's on deck. Season of the Witch, I'll hold off on, but we've already done part 4. I've kind of talked about part 6, which leaves 5. I swear to God, please, one of my channel members, pay me to review part 5. I don't want to. That's the most boring Halloween movie in the entire mythos. And Resurrection is stupid fun. But so there you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, my ranking, Etep's ranking for Halloween, the original 1978. On a scale of 1 to 5 hockey masks, I give this one a full, unadulterated 5 hockey masks out of 5. This movie's cultural impact went on to influence an entire genre and inspire it and help it flourish, and yet not lose its relevance in the zeitgeist ever. It hasn't. I mean, think about this. We had Halloween in the 70s. We've had Halloween in the 80s. We had Halloween in the 90s. We had Halloween in the 2000s. We had Halloween in the aughts. I mean, in the 2020s now, you know, in the 20-teens. So it's this spans, you know, decades and decades and decades. Be they good films or bad films. I mean, honestly, Resurrection came out in 2002, and you had Zombie in 2007 and 2009. I'll take the 2002 over the 2007 and 2009, or the 18, or the 2021 or 2022, any day, any day. But there you have it, folks. Those are my thoughts. 5 out of 5 hockey masks for John Carpenter's 1978 classic horror slasher genre-defining film, Halloween. Now it's your turn. Leave your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Am I full of shit? Do you appreciate the review? Do you have any thoughts about it? Anything you want me to review? Let me know in the comments. Do all the YouTube things you guys already know. Stay tuned for more reviews, more single-release videos. Until then, I'm Etep from the Place to Be Reviews. I've been here with all of you. So if I don't see you, have a great day, a pleasant tomorrow, and I will catch you on the next one.